Cannabis rescheduling is back on Donald Trump's agenda. If cannabis is rescheduled from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, it has the potential to skyrocket the value in cannabis stocks, including two of my favourite, which are Glasshouse Brands and Grown Rogue. You can see here on the DEA website that some examples of Schedule 1 are these, which are very dangerous and very addictive, and alongside it you can see that cannabis is also there. Schedule 1 drugs, substances or chemicals are defined as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and with a high potential for abuse. But existing research indicates cannabis holds tremendous promise for a wide range of medical and therapeutic uses, including pain and opiate use disorders, and it's why HHS, so Human Health Services, recommends that marijuana be reclassified as Schedule 3 controlled substance. It's already been considered an alternative treatment for multiple sclerosis to manage symptoms. The FDA has also authorized clinical trials to study cannabis for war veterans with PTSD as well. There have also been attempts to develop cannabis-derived therapeutics for Huntington's disease. Trump already championed the Right to Try Act, granting terminally ill patients access to experimental treatment. President Donald Trump has signed a bill giving terminally ill patients the right to try experimental treatments not approved by the government. And there is debate that the same principle should apply to cannabis science and cannabis-derived products as well. President Trump's administration is actively reviewing a proposal to move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Federal Controlled Substances Act, and a decision on rescheduling is expected within the next few weeks. Rescheduling would officially recognize medical use and remove cannabis from the same federal control category as heroin and other dangerous substances. Now, where cannabis companies like Glasshouse Brands and Grown Rogue that I mentioned earlier stand to benefit is around finance, banking and tax breaks, and these are potentially huge simply because it will free up a lot of capital, a lot of cash, so that these cannabis companies can reinvest that cash in growth, into operations, into hiring more staff. It also enables them to gain access to loans. Key benefits for the cannabis industry include elimination of IRS 280E tax penalties, improved access to banking and capital, and allocated medical research. And this has the potential to be huge for cannabis companies, like I said. If the administration directs the DEA to move cannabis to Schedule 3, it would end 280E tax penalties, eliminating the IRS rule preventing cannabis businesses from deducting ordinary expenses, could potentially save operators hundreds of thousands or millions annually, improve access to banking and capital, reduce legal risk for lenders, potentially increasing credit, loans, investment activity, and mergers and acquisitions across the country. If cannabis is rescheduled to Schedule 3, effectively what this does is it gives cannabis companies a level of legitimacy. It means that financial institutions can come in and start investing in cannabis companies without fear of any kind of repercussions from state level. Currently, cannabis companies cannot actually deduct regular expenses, for example, payroll, R&D, rent and marketing, but the rescheduling of cannabis will enable that. If cannabis is moved to Schedule 3, the industry would see an immediate and significant change. Most notably, the end of 280E tax penalties would save individual marijuana businesses hundreds and thousands, if not millions, in excessive taxes. These savings could be reinvested into expansion, higher wages, increased political engagement at a federal level. Like I said, this would make cannabis companies a more attractive investment opportunity for lenders, for financial institutions and banks, simply because there's a level of legitimacy to the business now. In short, this basically would convert cannabis from a tax-burdened industry to one with a level of legitimacy, with real profit margins and access to mainstream funding. We can see right here the growth of the cannabis market, with projected growth of US recreational medical marijuana sales in the billions of dollars right here. The cannabis industry is still in its infancy. There's still a lot of runway ahead for this market, this industry to grow. And one of the big questions that I kind of ask myself is, the rescheduling of cannabis to Schedule 3, is that the first step to complete legalization in the future? We've seen this with the prohibition in the past and what that's done to the alcohol industry. And is this something that we could potentially see in the next 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years? And if so, what does this do for the industry? What does this do for investors who invest in cannabis stocks right now and hold on for the long term? As I said, the industry is still in its early stages. It's still in development. We have these new products, including creams, gummies, vapes and drinks, that are all in development as we speak. In 2018, there was speculation around Coca-Cola, who were actually considering developing a cannabis drink. I think it was with CBD. And moving back to this thing around a potential relaxation or the rescheduling to Schedule 3, does this open up the opportunity for established brands to come into this space now that there's a level of acceptance to come in and start developing products? You know, maybe it could happen now, or it could happen in the next, like I said, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years if cannabis is legalized. And if cannabis is rescheduled, it opens up this opportunity for reinvestment into the growth, into product development, into operations, into expansion, into moving into new territories and hiring new people. I've made a number of videos on Glasshouse Brands and Grown Rogue where I talk a little bit more about why I love these companies so much. I go into their business kind of strategy, what they're doing to expand. On top of that, I go in and look into their USPs and moats. I'll stick some links below of the best videos that I've made, the most thorough ones. And thanks for watching. See you soon. Take care.